Chapter 41 The Secret Teleportation Array Leading to the Underground World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, the goblins are cunning and sly, and if 1/3 of what they say is true, it is the blessing of the gods. Since there is no magician, he cannot judge whether the other party is lying, so he can only use this method to judge. Since we have obtained the information we want, kill the rest. Wei Lin put away his sword and prepared to make the last test. If this goblin did not speak before his death, it means that there is really iron or underground. Otherwise, it means it is fake. The soldiers around heard the order of the master, and the next moment they raised their spears and slaughtered more than 20 captured goblins. The screams kept coming, and the goblin Jerry was frightened and pale, and began to make a decision in his heart in a race against time, whether to say it or not. The next moment, when Baird raised his sword and was about to chop him off, the goblin Jerry shouted, "My lord, I have intelligence to report. I am valuable. Please don't kill me." Oh. Wei Lin waved his hand to stop Baird, smiled, and asked, "The intelligence you said is valuable. I can forgive your previous deception of me. Otherwise, I will tie you up here and let the beasts in the wilderness eat your flesh and blood." "Yes, my lord." Jerry lay on the ground and said anxiously, "This passage only leads to 50 meters underground. There is no iron ore there. There is only a secret teleportation array that is still in operation, leading to the underground world where the villain is, Colorado." "You came to the ground through the teleportation array?" Wei Lin asked solemnly. "Yes, my lord, the teleportation array needs to absorb free magic energy because it has no magic crystal to charge. It can be teleported back and forth once every 6 months." Jerry said it all in one go, hoping that he would be forgiven. Baird on the side looked at Wei Lin and asked, "My lord, do you want to solve it?" "No, since he has shown his value, he has the right to survive." Hearing that the magic circle needs to be charged, Wei Lin's uneasy heart calmed down, and he signaled Baird to put away the sword and prepare to save the goblin's life. Seeing that he survived, Jerry covered his chest and breathed in the fresh air. For the first time, he felt that life was so beautiful. Seal the entrance of the cave, mark it, and explore it later. "Yes, my lord." Baird beat his chest and saluted, watching Wei Lin leave, and then asked his subordinates to tie up the only surviving goblin and prepare to take him back for custody. After some twists and turns, several soldiers found several large stones, blocked the 1-meter-high passage, covered it with sand and stones, and finally covered it with bushes to make it blend into the surrounding environment. On the way back, Wei Lin rode alone on a horse, strolling in the silent wilderness, looking up at the sky. Salt mines, mithril mines, magical plants in the cave at the bottom of the Praying Star Lake, and now there is a secret teleportation array leading to the dark area. Everything that appeared around the Praying Star Lake was valuable, and each of them could become the pillar of a territory, which made him feel unreal. Closing his eyes, he quietly recalled his pioneering career in the past 6 months. Only with enough strength can you seize opportunities. Wei Lin suddenly opened his eyes and looked into the distance, with a firm tone. Development, development, and development. He must do everything possible to develop his power, improve his strength, seize opportunities, and climb to higher peaks. In the following time, the Praying Star Lake was fully prepared for the arrival of the Jackals at the end of November, making 3-bow crossbows, forging spears, remixing mithril to cast weapons and armor, collecting food within a radius of 10 kilometers, and building castles. Everything was in preparation for the monster attack at the end of November. On the evening of November 1st, Wei Lin calculated the time until 8 o'clock arrived. At this moment, there was silence in my ears, and the guidance of fate did not come as expected. As I thought, the strength has increased, and the interval will be extended. Wei Lin sat on the edge of the bed, looked out the window, and muttered to himself. Suddenly, there was no news that was foreseen, and he was still a little uncomfortable. The time was extended. Wei Lin guessed that it might be a quarter, or half a year. If the interval changes from 1 month to several months, will the information obtained be more valuable? For the answer to this question, Wei Lin can only hide it in his heart and wait for time to help him answer it. Since the guidance of fate did not work, the next month needs to be more fully prepared on the original basis. although the highest strength of the jackals coming to the praying star lake is the low-level silver. If there are hundreds of them, it will be enough for him to drink a pot, and there may be a risk of falling. The next morning, Wei Lin called Baird over. "My lord." Baird, dressed in casual clothes, came to Wei Lin and saluted respectfully. "Baird, from today on, arrange patrol posts and expand the scope to 30 kilometers, especially in the west. If you find any unusual movement, report to me at any time. Also, let Randolph and his men speed up the excavation of the Mithril mine and complete it by the middle of this month at the latest." "My lord, I will convey your instructions now." At this moment, an attack was taking place in the camp where the Mithril mine was located. Randolph had just come out of the tent when he saw a soldier running over in a hurry, reporting in a panic, "My lord, a monster was found in the mine, and 4 serfs who were mining were injured." "What? Take me there quickly." Randolph didn't bother to put on his armor, picked up the knight's sword, and followed the soldiers to the mine. After hundreds of meters of winding mine tunnels, Randolph arrived at the scene at the fastest speed. More than a dozen soldiers, holding spears, surrounded the 2 yellow monitors, limiting their space for movement. Rock monitors. Randolph was shocked. How could such a monster appear in this ghost place? However, judging from their external size, these 2 monitors are only 3 or 4 meters long, and they should have been born not long ago. If an adult rock monitor is 16 or 17 meters long and has the strength of a gold level, it would be a disaster. The 2 rock monitors seemed to feel threatened and began to retreat, looking at Randolph vigilantly. Then, Randolph held his breath and concentrated, releasing his fighting spirit, forming a fiery red fighting spirit on the knight's sword. The next moment, he accelerated suddenly and rushed towards a rock monitor. "Cut!" The rock monitor roared, condensed stones in its mouth, and prepared to attack, but Randolph easily dodged the magic attack of the young rock monitor lizard. The knight's long sword sparked on the scales of the young rock monitor lizard, which surprised Randolph. The defense of the scales was even stronger than the armor. He stepped back a few steps and stared at the 2 beasts with a serious expression. Damn it, they must have swallowed the mithril or to increase the defense of their scales. Chapter 42, Juvenile Mutated Rock Monitor Lizard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Randolph took a deep breath and began to accumulate strength for a second attack. The young rock monitor lizard howled in pain and stared at Randolph not far away with bared teeth. Seeing this, the other rock giant lizard stood in front of its companion and at the same time concentrated its magic attack. Everyone obeyed the command and threw their spears. A squadron leader standing not far away immediately gave the order, and the surrounding soldiers threw their weapons vigorously to interfere with the magic attacks of the 2 rock giant lizards. More than a dozen spears flew towards them, directly interrupting the magic attacks of the 2 beasts. The hard scales were attacked, and the force was transmitted to the body, making the 2 young rock monitor lizards howl uncontrollably. The next moment, Randolph accelerated suddenly and launched an attack on the head of a young rock monitor lizard. Seeing the opponent's attack coming, the rock monitor lizard moved its body with difficulty and used its back to resist the attack. Bump! The huge force caused the 2 rock giant lizards to fly backwards and hit the rock wall hard. Feeling the slight shaking on the ground, the soldiers present once again refreshed their understanding of the Lord Knight's strength. After a few minutes, seeing that the rock monitor had no effect at all, Randolph instructed a soldier to step forward to check the situation. The soldier who received the order swallowed a mouthful of saliva, picked up the spear on the ground, walked over cautiously, and poked the rock monitors but with the tip of the spear. Seeing that there was no movement, he boldly stepped forward. "Sir, these 2 beasts have fainted." Later, the soldier reported excitedly that he was lucky to have survived. Seeing this, Randolph also breathed a sigh of relief and gave the order with a calm face, "You guys take these 2 beasts out, tie their limbs and mouths with iron chains, and wait 2 days to bring them back to the Lake of Praying Stars together with the ore. Leave it to the Lord to handle." "Yes, sir." A dozen soldiers stepped forward and hurriedly carried out the 2 rock giant lizards so that the mining serfs could continue to work and mine mithril mines. In the early morning, Wei Lin, led by Baird, came to the center of the village square and looked at the young rock monitor lizard with its limbs bound by iron chains, feeling a little happy. "Sir, these are the two beasts sent back by Randolph. They were found in the mine. It is said that they have eaten a lot of ore and their scales have amazing defense. Baird pulled out the knight's sword and struck the scales of the young rock monitor lizard. Explained to Varen, listening to the collision, Waylon initially judged that the two rock monitor lizards were very resistant to being beaten. He turned to Baird and said, if these two young rock monitor lizards are trained into war beasts, they can play an unexpected role in the future. Lord, we don't have an animal trainer. How can we train this? Baird looked embarrassed when he heard this. There were no professionals to train this thing. He was afraid that his own personnel would be killed first when he went to the battlefield. When Waylon heard this, he touched his chin. This was indeed a problem. In the blink of an eye, he remembered that a few days ago, didn't the half-elf girl know some knowledge about animal taming? Baird, go get Eunice over. Yes, Your Majesty. After hearing this, Baird subconsciously turned around to leave, but suddenly turned back and asked doubtfully, My lord, who is Eunice? That half-elf girl. Varen covered his face and stared at his manager speechlessly. Suddenly, Baird had a sudden realization and quickly left the square and walked towards the castle construction site. It seemed a little awkward to stay for a moment longer. Later, Waylon came to the struggling rock monitor and looked curiously at this monster that could only be observed in illustrated books. Different from ordinary rock monitor lizards, these two rock monitor lizards have a black body color covered with silver mesh patterns. There are inconspicuous dark white stripes from the chest to the abdomen, and the first half of the tail is mostly silver. In view of this situation, it should have swallowed a lot of mithril ore, resulting in mutation, or evolution. This situation is not uncommon in the world. There are many monsters that mistakenly eat some magic plants or strange ores, causing mutations and giving birth to different abilities. The two rock giant lizards looked at the terrifying human in front of them with fear in their eyes. They were even more terrifying than the last time they attacked them. A giant lizard made a noise, with a flattering tone in its tone. This surprised Varen. Such a brainless monster could actually beg for mercy and act cute. It was really strange. Could it be that the mithril mine had evolved their brains? In this way, it might become easy to tame these two mutated rock monitor lizards. Half an hour later, Baird brought the half-elf girl to the square. Grown-ups. Varen didn't talk nonsense and said to Eunice, before, you said you could tame animals. Eunice stared at the 3-meter-long rock monitor, a little scared, but after thinking about it, she mustered up the courage to say, yes, sir, I know something about animal training. My sister is an animal trainer. I am willing to try to tame these two rock monitors. I hope you can succeed. Varen turned to look at Baird and ordered, have someone untie the chains. Baird heard this and personally stepped forward to remove the chains, allowing one of the rock monitors to gain temporary freedom. Immediately, Eunice stepped forward, condensed the gentle magical healing light in her palms, and walked over slowly with an uneasy mood. The rock monitor lizard looked at the four-horned beast with pointed ears in front of him, showing no threat. He felt like he could slap her to death with just one tail. The walnut-sized head thought quickly, and the rock monitor lizard's doubtful eyes became clear. He glanced at his sister next to him and decided to make a bold decision. Lord, be careful. Seeing the rock monitor lizard rushing towards him, Waylon placed his right hand on the hilt of the knight's dagger, ready to charge for a fight. The next moment, the rock monitor lizard stopped in front of Waylon, lying on the ground, exposing its belly, just like a dog. This scene made Waylon and Baird very confused, and even Eunice was also confused. This rock monitor lizard, which is known for its cruelty and brainlessness, would actually show this state, which really shocked the three of them. The dozens of soldiers next to them did not think so. In their eyes, the hideous and terrifying monsters actually surrendered to the feet of the Lord, which shows that the Lake of Praying Stars must be a place where the goddess of life shelters. Lord, it. Baird walked forward and didn't know what to say for a while. Waylon didn't say anything. He came to the side of the rock monitor lizard and tentatively touched its chin with his hand. The wise rock monitor lizard showed a docile appearance, with a flattering look in its eyes. Its little head was very clear that if it recognized its master now, it would definitely have a good life in the future, otherwise it might die like its other brothers. Chapter 43, The Jackal Attacks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Quite like a dog. Varen stood up, looked at the rock monitor, and said to Baird and Eunice, later, another rock monitor lizard was unchained and lay on the ground equally docile, without any sign of violence. Go get some wolf meat. Looking at the new pet, Varen ordered the soldiers on the side. After a while, 2 soldiers carried 2 buckets of wolf meat coated with mineral salt and ready to be cured. They came to the rock monitor and dumped it on the ground. The 2 rock giant lizards stared at the wolf meat on the ground, drooling, and their eyes revealed a look of desire, but they did not dare to act rashly. Ha ha ha, quite sensible. Waylin stepped forward, picked up a piece of meat, and threw it to one of the rock monitor lizards. I saw the rock monitor lizard open its mouth wide and swallow the wolf meat in one mouthful, licking its mouth with unsatisfied content and looking longingly at its new master. Baird stood aside and watched the scene calmly. He subjectively believed that the Lord must be someone protected by the goddess of life. Otherwise, it would be impossible to explain why the 2 brainless beasts showed surrender in the first place. Eunice on the side was even more refreshed. In her more than 50 years of life, she had never encountered this kind of phenomenon. This kind of ferocious beast, even if it was facing a legend, it would show its teeth, but now it looks like he was like a little puppy, which was hard for the half-elf to accept. However, Eunice knew that she had missed another opportunity, and she didn't know when she would get another chance. When I think about the next 10 years, I can only work diligently as a coolie-like architect, and I feel that life is gloomy. As for escaping, in the lake of praying stars where there are many silver nights, her idea is no different from committing suicide. During the interaction, Varen named the 2 rock monitor lizards. Those with whiter skin are called Xiaobai, and those with yellower skin are called Xiaohuang. Be obedient, and I will build a home for you too. Now follow the 2 keepers to the lake to clean yourself. After the rock giant lizard left, Varen noticed Eunice next to him and said with a smile, there is hard work without credit. I will ask Orlando to send you a low-level magic crystal later. Thank you, sir. Eunice bowed slightly and saluted, returning to the castle construction site. At this time, the silent Baird asked, Lord, I feel that there is no need to do this to the alien race of half-elves. If you dare to complain, just give them a beating. If you dare to run away, just cut off your legs. Ha ha ha, Baird, your idea is a bit extreme. After hearing this, Waylin replied with a smile, without any blame in his words. He had neither objection nor support to Baird's suggestion. Okay, I have my own set of rules for dealing with alien races. After hearing this, Baird saluted respectfully and then left the village square. At the end of November, there is no green grass in the wilderness, and the desolate scenery is revealed everywhere. More than 30 kilometers west of Lake of Prayer for Stars, 3 warriors sat around a campfire, bragging, chatting, and killing time. Captain, I heard that you have saved enough money soon and can buy a woman soon. A soldier looked at the team leader with envy, his words full of envy. After hearing this, Eden wiped the iron sword and replied with a smile, it's coming soon. After this month, I will be able to start a family. Captain, when you get married, don't forget us brothers. The younger soldier took a sip of water and said kindly. Don't worry, I won't forget you. Eden, who was born a serf, had never experienced what home felt like. At this time, another soldier on patrol returned to the camp. His face was pale, and he was trembling on his horse. Seeing this, Eden quickly helped his comrade who was about to fall off his horse. Marshal, get the water quickly. Oh. After some fussing, the reconnaissance soldier recovered and said anxiously to Eden, Captain, jackals, there are many jackals as far as the eye can see, coming towards us, about 10 kilometers away. Did I find you? Eden asked in a deep voice. Probably not. I looked from a distance and when I realized something was wrong, I immediately turned around and returned. That's good. Eden breathed a sigh of relief, and then ordered the other soldiers, hurry up and pack up. Let's leave here immediately, return to the Lake of Praying Stars, and report the situation to Lord Baird. When everyone heard this, they immediately put out the bonfire. put away the iron pots, food and tents, tied them to their horses, and went back as quickly as possible. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Weylin, who was training in the open space of the castle, stopped because he saw Baird walking over in a hurry. "My lord," the sentry reported that a large number of jackals were found approaching the Lake of Praying Stars. "They are still 30 kilometers away from the Lake of Praying Stars." Weylin didn't show any surprise after hearing this. He already knew all this. For this reason, he had already moved most of the food and supplies from the villages down the mountain to the castle so that he could evacuate more quickly when the jackals arrived. "Baird, inform everyone that from now on, the Lake of Praying Stars will enter a state of war. Let the remaining people evacuate to the castle and distribute weapons to the strong serfs. The war has begun." "Yes, lord." That night, Varen's order was read out. Throughout the night, the Lake of Praying Stars was brightly lit. Under Baird's command, freedmen and serfs leading their own private property retreated towards the castle on the mountain. Weylin stood on the inner city wall, looking at the busy crowd on the mountain road, thinking in his heart how to benefit from this turmoil. All the western provinces of the Kingdom of Elia will be attacked. According to his guess, the first to be hit should be the province of Lunsa, and there should not be many monsters coming to the small transparent province of Cadlo. 100 years ago, the Grey Wasteland dispatched millions of monster coalition forces, driving countless goblins and dog-headed men to invade the western border of the Kingdom of Elia, which caused a great blow to the pioneers at that time. However, the upper class of the kingdom took advantage of this turmoil to expand more than 2 million square kilometers of land. The province of Lunsa, with an area of up to 750,000 square kilometers, was established as a province directly under the royal family under the circumstances at that time. Today, the province of Lunsa, as the most important hub of the Grey Wasteland and the Kingdom of Elia, has prosperous business. Its capital city is known as the Pearl of the West and is the first choice for these monster coalitions. A golden dragon and 2 red dragons fought a great battle. It's hard not to suspect that the defeat of the golden dragon led to the war. Whatever the reason, it was not something that a small silver knight like him could explore now. The next thing to consider was to stop the attack of the gnolls and protect his people and property. Chapter 44, The First Probing Attack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 30 kilometers away from the Lake of Prayer for Stars, more than 3,000 jackals gathered here to rest and recover their strength. In a dilapidated tent, a black-haired jackal sat in the main seat, looking at the noisy clan leaders below, which he had long been accustomed to. "I'm about to enter the human world. Thank you Lord Valas for your gift. I'm going to eat a lot this time, a human aristocrat with fine skin and tender flesh. My mouth is watering just thinking about it. Wealth, the gold coins of the human world are calling me." The chiefs of more than a dozen jackal clans were chatting in various directions, and each wolf had a different pursuit. At this time, a tall jackal walked in and knelt on the ground, waiting for the leader's instructions. The gnoll leader Rogers, who had closed his eyes to rest, opened his eyes, shocking the surroundings. The tent suddenly became quiet, and no gnoll clan leader dared to speak again. "Commander, the scouts reported that there is a human territory 30 kilometers ahead. Time." The jackal sitting in the first place heard this and hurriedly reported, "Commander, it is 6 o'clock in the morning. In an hour, we will set off to capture the human territory and eat." "Yes, Commander." All the gnoll clan leaders stood up, bowed and saluted, and then left the tent one after another. As the sun rose, more than 3,000 jackals ran silently in the wilderness, heading towards the Lake of Prayer for Stars. The gnoll leader Logos was riding on the back of a tall gnoll, looking at the advancing army and determined to capture the first human territory. With the breeze in his ears, he couldn't help but recall his father's story about the Battle of Lensa, 100 years ago. Under the orders of more than a dozen wilderness monster race gods including the jackal, near the border of the human kingdom of Ilia, all the monster clans tried their best to gather a million monster coalition and drive away millions of goblins. Head east. In the early days, it was overwhelming, conquering many human territories in one fell swoop and capturing countless slaves and food, but soon there was a turning point. The goddess of life believed in by the kingdom of Ilia personally died, causing many monster races and gods to stop their efforts and not dare to act rashly. Later, the humans pushed back and killed the red dragon Suggs, the leader of the Monster Alliance, in the Lunsa area. At this point, it ended with the monster clan's defeat, and humans won the war and seized large tracts of land that belonged to them. In recent years, humans have continued to expand, shrinking the living space of monsters. And a turmoil is coming again. The Jackal Commander Rogers looked at the unfamiliar environment around him and clenched his fists. As a jackal with some status, he knew very well that this action was just a test. In fact, there have been many such temptations, and this is just the first time. As for why, he didn't know. Cannon fodder, just cannon fodder. As a low-level silver warrior, he did not have such a high status as the leader of a team. He is cannon fodder. The great master's heirs cannot go, so he can only have a jackal like him who has no sense of existence and whose strength is not as good as the leader. Even the jackal clans under him are all poor and stupid fools who were fooled into this. Stay alive, survive. Arriving at the human border, all he has to do is survive. In the castle on the cliff of Lake of Stars, Wei Lin stood at the top, looking at the approaching gnolls in the distance. He gritted his teeth and said, "There are at least 3,000 gnolls, which is quite a challenge." At this time, Baird came to his side and reported respectfully, "My lord, there are various traps set up in the village, enough for these jackals to drink a pot." "How well is the stone stored? How many battles can it sustain?" Varen turned his head to look at Baird and asked in a deep voice. "My lord, the castle grounds are filled with stones, enough to support 4 high-intensity battles." After hearing this, Wei Lin nodded and continued, "Let everyone take some time to rest. We may not have any free time next time." "Yes." In the castle, in addition to the 500 soldiers, another 2,000 young and middle-aged men were also organized, armed with spears, some with leather armors and iron swords, to act as supervisors and grassroots commanders. The remaining personnel, both men and women, were all organized as logistics personnel, supporting and transporting the wounded, replenishing stones, and providing sufficient iron arrows for the 3-bow bed crossbow. Near noon, the gnoll leader Logos stopped outside the village and shouted loudly, "Stop advancing." Some of the jackals followed orders and kept the basic formation intact. There were about 500 of them, who were trained by Rutgers during his month-long march. The remaining 2,500 jackals were obviously half a beat slower, standing in place haphazardly, at a loss, looking like a motley army. "Commander, why do you stop advancing? The human territory is right in front of you." A silver low-level gnoll clan leader stepped forward, his eyes full of greed, staring at the village in the distance, and asked doubtfully. Logos didn't say anything. He jumped off the back of the tall jackal, came to the leader of the jackal clan who was speaking, and kicked him away. The dozen or so low-level silver jackals around them all lowered their heads and did not dare to speak. "My words are orders." Rogers looked around and said ruthlessly, "Now, go around the village and target the castle on the hill. Capture it." "Yes, Commander." All the jackals replied loudly, not daring to hesitate at all. On the wall inside the castle, Varen noticed that the gnolls were starting to circle around and said, "Baird, sound the gongs and drums and prepare to fight. We have met our opponent." "Yes, Lord." Baird's face didn't look good when he saw this. Unexpectedly, the other party bypassed the village. Wasn't their work last night in vain? Dang dang dang. One team goes up to the city wall, while the second team rests. In various areas of the castle, knights responsible for guarding various stages of the city walls heard this voice and issued orders to the officers. The next moment, the silent castle became noisy, with people in action everywhere. In just 10 minutes, more than 800 people responsible for guarding the city wall were in place. It's not that Wei Lin doesn't want to arrange more people to defend, but the outer city wall and the inner city wall combined can only accommodate so many people fighting. At the same time, an hour later, a large number of gnolls arrived 1 kilometer away from the castle. Those green reptiles dare to lie about the news. It's really easy for them to roast and eat them. Logos looked at the castle and was in a bad mood. He recalled a goblin tribe that had been captured a few days ago. The news he received showed that this place was occupied by humans half a year ago. Damn reptile, Can this castle be repaired in half a year? A Jackal looked at the commander in fear and asked, Commander, do you want to attack? Attack, let the third group and the fourth group attack and test the opponent's strength. Rogers thought for a while and issued the order. Yes, Commander. Chapter 45 The First Tentative Attack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Then, more than 1,000 gnolls came out, holding a variety of weapons in their hands. The tall and mighty gnolls held high-end weapons such as iron flails and chain hammers, while the thinner ones held wooden maces with some iron sheets inlaid on the outside, and a large number of them held wooden sticks and stones. Attack. At Rogers's command, thousands of gnolls launched an attack. The chaotic formation, with an attack width of several kilometers, rushed towards the castle in a mighty manner. At the highest point of the castle, Waylin stood with his sword, calmly looking at the attacking gnolls below. 23 bow crossbows were placed on the inner wall, ready for a long time, and the personnel were in place, waiting for the Lord's order. Waylin raised his right hand and calculated the distance. When the gnoll vanguard was only 600 meters away from the outer wall, he decisively put down his hand. 20 strong soldiers holding wooden hammers slammed the triggers, and 20 iron arrows flew out with a whizzing sound. Awoo! Several tall jackals were pierced by the iron arrows, and the strength did not decrease. They pierced several jackals in succession before stopping. Rogers looked at the 12 blood-red roads in the attacking team expressionlessly, and he didn't know what he was thinking. The smell of blood spread on the battlefield, stimulating the violent blood source of the jackals, losing the last of their sanity, and speeding up the attack regardless of everything. Baird, who was standing on the outer wall, saw this and ordered loudly, "Stand up the shield." More than 200 soldiers heard the order, stood up wooden shields wrapped in iron sheets, held their spears tightly, and prepared to meet the first wave of attack. The 3 bow crossbows on the inner wall kept firing, causing casualties to the attacking jackals. When they came to the edge of the city wall, some of the gnolls threw stones in their hands, and other gnolls began to climb the city wall with their claws, preparing to climb over the 6-meter-high outer city wall. The stones hit the wooden shields, making bangs, and from time to time, chain hammers and flails were thrown onto the city wall, knocking the soldiers supporting the wooden shields away. Baird was also helpless about this. Some of the soldiers were serfs and freemen who had just been recruited. Although they had a period of training, they did not successfully practice the warrior awakening method to become a warrior. Their combat capabilities must not be as solid as a real warrior. Seeing that some of the gnolls had already climbed halfway, Baird immediately ordered loudly, "Throw stones." The warriors hiding behind the shields held the boulders and came to the city wall, throwing down the stones weighing hundreds of pounds in their hands. Many gnolls were hit by stones, fell off the city wall, and wailed in pain. The battle lasted from noon to afternoon. As it was getting dark, Rogers ordered his men to issue a retreat order. The attacking gnolls stopped, dragging the bodies of their companions, and retreated like a tide. Seeing the other side retreat, the soldiers defending the outer wall collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath and wiping the sweat from their foreheads. Baird shook the blood off the knight's long sword, put it back into the scabbard, counted the casualties, and reported the defense situation later. The more than 600 surviving gnolls dragged the bodies of their companions back to the camp. The long-awaited gnoll chef took the bodies and started to make a fire to cook. Along the way, they used the goblin and dog-headed slaves accompanying the army as food. From time to time, they encountered a goblin tribe and looted it to expand their food reserves. When they arrived at the border of human territory, the dog-headed people and goblins had finished eating. They thought they could capture a piece of human territory as quickly as possible to solve the food problem. I didn't expect this to happen. In addition, the surroundings were bare and there was no bark to eat. I could only eat the corpses of my compatriots. Commander, food. A tall gnoll handed a roasted wolf leg to Rogers respectfully. A reward for you. Rogers looked at the roasted wolf leg in front of him with disgust and said expressionlessly, "Thank you, Commander." After hearing this, the gnoll took the roasted wolf leg and left the place happily. Rogers looked at the other gnolls who were eating their own kind and acting happy, and his contemptuous eyes were not concealed. Although he didn't regard these beasts as his own people. From the situation in the afternoon, humans used a bow and crossbow with a long range. I don't know if it is large-scale equipment or a unique technology of this human noble. It is definitely impossible to capture this human castle with ordinary gnolls. Those small clan leaders must be put on the field. Tomorrow, Rogers is going to make a test. If he can't capture this castle in one go, then bypass this place and continue to move eastward. He came here with a reconnaissance mission, so there was no need to fight to the death with humans. Moreover, even if the enemy cut off his retreat on the way back, he only needed to abandon these idiots and lead his confidants away. He still didn't believe that humans could completely block all the passages leading to the restoration of the grey light. In the castle, Waylin inspected and listened to Baird's report. My lord, in the defensive battle this afternoon, we consumed a total of 160 iron arrows, 1/5 of the stone reserves, and suffered 86 casualties, including 23 deaths, most of whom died in the fight with the jackals. In addition, we took advantage of the night to go out of the city to harvest the heads of the jackals, and obtained 167 ordinary heads and 57 bronze heads. The rest of the bodies were taken back by the enemy. According to incomplete statistics, this battle killed and injured more than 400 jackals. Wei Lin stopped and said in a deep voice, "Today may be the opponent's test, tomorrow is the key, let all knights be prepared, tomorrow the silver-level wolf man may be on the field. In addition, pickle the wolf man's head with lime. This hard-won military merit must be stored well. It is a good thing to be promoted to a noble title and sold to other nobles." "I know." After Baird left, Wei Lin went around and returned to his room. Sitting on the chair, Wei Lin closed his eyes and rested, recalling what he observed during the day. The leading wolf man has a certain level of wisdom. Whether it is deterring the village, avoiding unknown dangers, or attacking and using cannon fodder, exploring the enemy's strengths and weaknesses, it can be regarded as a certain level. This point does not conform to Wei Lin's stereotype of the wolf man being violent and brainless. I wish the other party had no brains. Wei Lin covered his head and said helplessly, in order to prevent the gnolls from attacking at night, the entire castle was brightly lit. All the soldiers kept their weapons with them and rested on the city walls with blankets, which was convenient for changing shifts and for joining the battle at any time. Baird, the chief steward of the Praying Star Lake, inspected the outer city walls every 2 hours to ensure that there were no mistakes. Window_tabula equals window_tabula_tabula.push mode, thumbs, feed 01, container, tabula, below, article, thumbnail, 300x250, placement, below article thumbnail, 300 by 250, target_type, mix. Chapter 46 The Second Attack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At dawn, more than 2,000 gnolls finished the remaining meat and gathered into the team amidst the scoldings of the gnoll clan leader. Logos was riding on the back of a gnoll, and 2 strong gnolls beside him were carrying chain hammers, which served as temporary weapon racks. "Commander, the assembly is complete and we are waiting for your orders." A Jackal clan leader stepped forward and said respectfully. When the sun shone on the outer wall of the castle, Rogers got off the Jackal's back, picked up his weapon, and shouted an order, "Attack." More than 2,000 jackals howled and headed towards the castle like a tide. Rogers held the hammer and followed the team, preparing for Qin Ji's exit. The other Jackal silver warriors were hiding in the team, trying to catch the opponent by surprise when they were about to climb the city wall. Just like yesterday, the 3-bow bed crossbow was the first to show its power, shooting iron arrows in the direction of the jackals. "Call out!" An iron arrow flew past Luo and penetrated the 2 guards who were following him. "Danger, scatter!" After hearing this, the other Jackal guards dispersed one after another, no longer surrounding Logos. In a short distance of 2 kilometers, within 5 minutes and after sacrificing the lives of hundreds of jackals, they successfully reached the outer city wall area. The next moment, some of the gnolls threw stones and weapons to interfere with the city wall defenders, and some began to climb the city wall. Soon, the battle became fierce, with blood splattering, screams and wails, and the sound of weapons clashing filling the entire outer city wall. Many silver-level gnolls broke through the city wall and caused great damage to the soldiers defending the city, but they were quickly blocked by the Silver Knights. Logos mingled among the crowd, his eyes fixed on the human nobleman at the top of the castle. with his keen perception, the most threatening person in this castle and the one with the highest status must be this young human being. As long as you kill him, taking this castle will be easy. Leader. A jackal came to Logos with a bloody iron arrow and handed it to him respectfully. Rogers weighed the weight of the iron arrow, looking for the right moment. The next moment, he began to exert his strength and throw it at the human nobles at the top of the castle. Varen, who stood with his sword in his hand, looked at the iron arrow flying towards him, drew out his sword and cut it off. Then looked at Logos, who was hiding in the gnoll attacking team. One person and one wolf looked at each other, and they both understood each other's thoughts. Roar. After being discovered, Logos no longer hid, and with the help of climbing jackals, he climbed onto the city wall in a few seconds, brandishing a hammer, and smashed a dozen soldiers off the city wall, leaving them dead or alive. Wei Lin looked at Rutgers with sharp eyes, jumped down from the platform, and landed steadily on the outer city wall. Human, today, you die and I live. Rogers looked at Varen warily, his tone solemn. Then let's see who dies and who lives. Wei Lin looked at the enemy in front of him seriously. It was very powerful, but he could deal with it. The knight's long sword and the chain hammer intertwined and collided, which was also a battle between the two people's fighting spirit. The green light and the fiery red flames fought against each other, causing great damage to the city wall stacks. Unconsciously, more than 10 minutes have passed. One person and one wolf are in a stalemate, and no one can do anything to the other. At this time, Orlando came to his side at some point and attacked from the flank while Rutgers was fighting with all his heart. Puff. One arm was abandoned high and fell on the city wall. Ouch. Despicable humans. Rogers covered his broken arm and said angrily. All means can be used against monsters. Wei Lin said without blushing, preparing to take down the jackal completely and end this turmoil. Seeing two silver knights outflanking him, Rogers jumped off the city wall without hesitation and ordered his bodyguards to fend off the pursuers. Seeing this, Varen jumped off the wall, followed closely by Orlando. Dozens of tall gnolls formed a simple formation to stand between the fleeing Logos and Varen. Kill them. Most of these gnolls were low-level and mid-level bronze, and they were completely vulnerable to the two silver knights, Varen and Orlando. In less than 10 minutes, they were all beheaded. However, this also gave Rutgers enough time to escape. Not long after, the attacking gnolls heard the sound of retreat, dragged the bodies of their companions, and began to retreat. This siege battle lasted less than 2 hours and ended, but it was several times more brutal than yesterday. The blood had stained the outer city wall red, and the corpses of jackals were intertwined with the corpses of our own soldiers. After being out of danger, Rogers immediately summoned the surviving Jackal clan leaders to prepare to issue new orders. A few days ago, there were 17, but now there are only 9 left, all with injuries. Everyone's expressions were solemn, including Rutgers, who had long lost the previous ease. Humanity is very powerful in this battle. There are 15 silver knights, which is a great force. I guess that this is a human outpost, and the real territory of the human nobles is behind it, so I decided to detour here and attack the human territory behind to make up for the losses. Yes, Commander. The remaining 9 gnolls responded, their words revealing that they wanted to leave this place of death as soon as possible, in order to prevent the human nobles in the castle from attacking. Rogers immediately asked the chef to light a fire and cook, and asked his jackals to set off immediately after they were full, so as not to stay in this place, to avoid accidents. On the other side, after Wei Lin counted the casualties and compared them with the captured ones, he felt a little balanced. In this battle, 117 people died, 13 of them were regular troops, and the rest were serfs. In addition, 226 people were injured. In this battle, a total of 687 heads of ordinary jackals, 167 bronze-level jackals, and 5 silver-level jackals were captured, and the rest of the bodies were taken back by the other side. Baird, prepare a group of people and prepare tonight. At this time, Knight Randolph came in, knelt on one knee, and reported respectfully, "My lord, the scouts reported that the gnolls disappeared and were suspected to be heading east." After hearing this, Wei Lin swallowed back what he was about to say, and then said, "Deal with the bodies to avoid the plague." "Yes, my lord." After Baird took the order and left, Wei Lin supported his chin and began to think in his mind. Going to the east, that means they will come back, so we can intercept them halfway, rob them, and make up for our losses. As for the losses of the nobles in the east, that was not his concern. He blocked the gnolls here for a day and a night, killing more than 1,000 gnolls. Whether it was for the kingdom or these nobles, he had done his best. Chapter 47, The Dwarf Marquis and the Centaur Clan in Unexpected Disaster. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The day after the gnolls left, the serfs hiding in the castle returned to the village, cleared the traps, and under the command of the knights, got busy and worked hard to relieve themselves of their status as slaves. Under Baird's guidance, the troops in the territory worked harder to train and improve their strength. Under the guidance of various knights, the strength of many knight attendants has been steadily improved. Orlando and Hebrews train with their contractors all day long to deepen their connection with each other, in an attempt to connect their fighting spirits in the shortest possible time and form the war beast recorded in the mysterious sphere. In addition, the second phase of the castle's construction work is being carried out simultaneously, with the aim of completing the construction work in March of the following year. As the Lord of the Lake of Praying Stars, Waylin was not idle throughout December. Get up on time every day, train, and enhance your strength. Compared to the peaceful Lake of Prayer for Stars, other parts of the Carid province were plunged into turmoil. In the western part of the Ilia kingdom, many monsters crossed the buffer area and reached the border area, fighting with the kingdom's army and other noble private armies. At the same time, the alliance of the four territories was discovered to be robbing orichalcum mines. In the southwest region of the Ironforged Dwarf Mountain Kingdom, in a magnificent castle, the dwarf Marquis Dara Ironforge sat on an iron seat. Listening to the report from his subordinates, his face became very gloomy. Sir, according to the report of the Griffin Knight, more than 200 people escorting the orichalcum mine have all disappeared. Using the search magic scroll you gave us, we found the last traces of their existence 200 kilometers away from the border of the human kingdom of Ilia. This is the items found in the search. The dwarf took out a centaur warrior's token from his arms and presented it with both hands. Standing to the left of dwarf Marquis Dara, a high-level silver warrior wearing silver-white armor walked down the stairs, took the token, and handed it to the dwarf Marquis respectfully. Dara looked at the token carefully and discovered at a glance that it was a token unique to the Centaur clan. Its material was made from the bones of strong Centaur men and represented the inheritance of the Centaur clan. What else was found? The dwarf kneeling in the center of the hall heard this, lowered his head and said, Sir, apart from this item, no other clues have been found. It seems that these mice are quite cautious, even using deodorizing potions. The calm tone was accompanied by a biting chill. The dozen or so high-level silver dwarf guards guarding the hall felt great pressure, as if they were going to die suddenly in the next moment. The reporting dwarf was in the center. Faced with the soul-level aura of the dwarf Marquis Dara, he lay directly on the ground without daring to make any sound. After a while, a golden mid-level dwarf warrior entered the castle hall and knelt down to obey orders. Karak. My lord. The golden mid-level dwarf warrior Karak heard the words and responded loudly. I will give you 300 hammer warriors, 1,000 goat knights, and 3,000 dwarf warriors to take back 10 times my losses from the Centaur clan. Yes. Karak caught the token thrown by Dara, leaned over and saluted, and then left the castle hall. After a few more minutes, Dara said again, monitor the human market. If there is any news of orichalcum or trading, report it to me immediately. Yes, sir. After hearing this, the dwarf who reported back rolled and crawled away from here. Dara knocked on the iron base regularly, making a banging sound, and said as if no one was watching, You are a low-level framer, don't let me find out who you are. As for why he still wanted to attack the centaurs after knowing the truth, he had his own reasons. After all, he couldn't lose his profits in vain. If he couldn't find the murderer at this stage, he would take it back tenfold from the most direct and clear target. He excavated this batch of orichalcum from a sparse and scattered copper mine in the wilderness, and transported it once every month. In order to avoid accidents, the person in charge of the escort was only a high-level silver dwarf warrior. In his territory, every gold-level combatant is the focus of attention from all parties and is unlikely to be missing for a long time. In 10 years, His Majesty the King will launch a war to take back the lost areas from the Kingdom of Ilia. I must speed up, collect minerals, forge weapons, and cultivate an army in order to gain enough benefits in the war. 5,000 well-equipped troops left the territory of the dwarf Marquis Dara and headed to the Ash Moon wasteland from the west, heading directly towards the territory where the Centaurs were located. In a Centaur clan camp, thousands of Centaurs were beheaded and piled neatly in the wilderness. The dwarf golden warrior Karak took the Centaur clan leader, who was only a middle-level silver man, threw him to the ground, stepped on his head, took out the token, and asked, "Tell me, this is something from that clan? Dirty and despicable dwarves, this is the Grey Wasteland, and my god will definitely punish you." The Centaur clan leader stared at Karak fiercely, without fear of death. "I mean no offense to the Centaur god Kiran's crown, but this is no reason for you to disrespect me." Karak waved his hand, and more than 20 Centaur cubs were blown into pieces by the hammer. "As long as you tell me which Centaur clan this is, I can leave a seed for your clan. Don't even think about it." Subsequently, all the hundreds of captured Centaurs died under the dwarf's hammer. The arrogant Centaur clan leader also had his head smashed by Karak, and one of his fangs was removed as his collection. Next, Karak led the army to continue to advance, plundering the Centaur clans, snatching horses and other valuable things, and searching for the Centaur clan with the token. After slaughtering 6 Centaur clans in succession and killing more than 4,000 Centaurs, Karak finally obtained the information he wanted. As a small branch of the Twilight Hammer clan, one of the 13 clans chosen by the Centaur god, the Magram clan has a population of 15,008 Centaur clan vassals. It is doing well in the border area of the Iron-Forged Dwarf Mountain Kingdom. Recently, Mam, the chief of the Magram clan, learned that the purple horse escorted by his daughter Arya was lost, and directly deprived the other party of his status as the young master, imprisoned him, and waited for the next year to marry with the same clan next door. In addition, Mam is also actively preparing, selecting brave Centaur warriors and archers, and when the monster army on the human border is tested to withdraw, he will lead the army to retaliate against humans. As for now, he couldn't go, nor did he dare to go, for fear of being used as cannon fodder. At this moment, the dwarf army led by Karak was also approaching the Magram clan, and they didn't know that they were about to face a devastating blow. Chapter 48, Jackal Movements. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It has been more than half a month since the Jackals left the Lake of Praying Stars and continued eastward. During this period of time, Qixing Lake resumed its usual busy life, improving the castle, cultivating farmland, building canals, digging salt mines, and patrolling the territory. Every night under Weylin performed his or her own duties and completed the work in their hands conscientiously. As a lord, Varen has not been idle either. After fighting the gnolls, he deeply realized the shortcomings of his fighting skills. Therefore, he made a strict work and rest plan for himself. In the morning, he dealt with the official affairs of the territory. In the afternoon he practiced with other knights, and in the evening he practiced fighting spirit, seizing every minute and every second to improve himself. In late December, the personnel on the reconnaissance mission returned to the Lake of Praying Stars and brought the latest intelligence on the Cardaro province to Weylin. In the castle hall, the captain of the reconnaissance team, the low-level silver knight Mike, was respectfully reporting to Varen. "My lord, there are 5 monster armies attacking the border of Cardaro province. Their targets are the border fortress Montas, our territory's Lake of Praying Stars, and Avonmouth in the Yellow Sand Valley. Among them are the border fortress Montas faces the largest number of monster alliances, with more than 30,000 monsters." After Weylin heard this, he asked, "What is the current situation in the inland areas of the province?" "It's very chaotic. It's very chaotic." Mike thought about it for a while and replied, "Nobles from all over the country resisted resolutely when attacked by monsters, were defeated and fled, or even fled. Especially the closer to the provincial capital, this kind of the phenomenon becomes more obvious. It seems that more than 100 years of peace have worn away the bravery of some nobles." Weylin chuckled and sneered at the performance of some nobles. "In this turmoil, I don't know how many noble families in Cardaro province will have their territories taken back, or the title heirs will be replaced by their masters." However, these meant little to him. "What's the current situation of the group of jackals I asked you to focus on?" My lord, the defeated group of remnants left the Lake of Praying Stars to the east and successively attacked several noble territories. It seems that they lacked strength, or they learned the lesson of attacking the castle. This group of gnolls only plundered the villages and towns around the castle. He ignored the nobles' castles and accumulated a lot of wealth. My subordinates returned this time because they learned that the Jackals were planning to circumnavigate the Lake of Prayer for Stars and return to the wilderness from the Bedrock Mountain more than 60 kilometers south of us, bringing with them the plundered wealth and population. The news is reliable. Varen suddenly became energetic, stared at Mike, and asked seriously. It's absolutely true. My subordinate captured a silver low-level Jackal clan leader and learned the news from him. Wei Lin looked thoughtful, wondering if the other party would change direction because of this. Mike stood aside and waited quietly. Specific time. The information obtained from the Jackal shows that the approximate time should be early January, but the specific time is not known. Take your people and continue to conduct reconnaissance. If there is any situation, report to me immediately. Yes, Lord. After waiting for Mike to leave, Varen came to the map and looked at several areas around the Lake of Praying Stars. He was also unsure whether the Jackal leader would change his mind temporarily and leave elsewhere when he learned that his men had disappeared. If we hurriedly lead a large force to Bedrock Mountain to ambush and advance, would we lose more than we gain? Wait for a while, don't make any decisions now. Afterwards, Varen asked Baird to mobilize the territorial army and be ready to set off, waiting for his instructions at the specific time. In a village in Cardro province, the one-armed Jackal Rogers was holding a roasted beef leg, chewing it and looking calmly into the room. Chief, in these more than 20 days of plundering, we have robbed more wealth than we can count. The number of strong human slaves captured alone is more than 10,000. The leader of the Jackal clan sitting below was playing with his hands. Of gold coins, he said excitedly. Chief, do you want to go eastward next? I heard that the further east you go, the richer the human nobles are and the more good things they have. The leader of a Jackal clan with a scar on his face took this opportunity and asked tentatively. At this time, Logos noticed that something was wrong. He carefully counted his men below and asked, "Where did Daulago go?" After hearing this, the Jackals below looked at me and I looked at you, all with question marks on their faces. Someone is coming. Looking at this bunch of trash, Rogers said gloomily. Immediately, 2 tall Jackals entered the room and knelt on the ground, waiting for orders. Go and bring Daulago's tribe here. Yes, leader. After a while, several dirty gnolls were brought here, waiting for Rogers' questioning. Where is your clan leader? A Jackal crawled on the ground and replied respectfully, Dear leader, our clan leader went out to rob 3 days ago and has not returned to the camp yet. In other words, your clan leader has not returned for 3 days, and I, the leader, don't know any news. The gnolls lying on the ground were trembling with fear. Thinking back to the clan members who had been executed inexplicably for more than 20 days, they began to pray for the protection of Gawalik, the gnoll god. Drag it out and bake it. After hearing this, several Jackal men collapsed on the ground and were forcibly dragged out by several Jackal guards. The other gnoll clan leaders lowered their heads one after another, not daring to make any sound. Since the leader lost an arm, his personality has become more and more violent, and he would kill his people to vent his anger. Rogers looked around, and no wolf dared to look him in the eye. 2 weeks later, we will start the return journey according to the original plan. Yes, leader. No Jackal objected, and they all answered loudly to show that they had no objection. On the night of January 1st, 9721, Wei Lin did not practice for the first time, but lay on the bed and waited quietly. Tonight, according to his previous guess, fate will tell him new news. Soon, the time came to 8 o'clock, and the pleasant voice sounded again, bringing him valuable news. 7 days later, a legendary magician from the starry sky will fall in the grey mist mountain north of the Praying Star Lake. Saving her will gain the other party's protection for 30 years. Legendary magician. Wei Lin sat up suddenly, his face full of surprise. What can I use to save her? The next moment, he found that he had something that could save a legendary magician. However, he received news during the day that the gnolls had set off to return to the Grey Wasteland, and as they had explored before, they were preparing to leave the Cartero province from the south. You can't take care of both the north and the south, you must make a choice. Waylin's face was very entangled. On the one hand, a huge amount of supplies could allow the territory to develop further, and on the other hand, he could gain the friendship of the legendary magician, but he could only get 30 years of protection. In that case, let's do it. Soon, Waylin had a clear answer in his mind: window_tabula equals window_tabula .push, mode, thumbs, feed, 01, container, tabula, below, article, thumbnail, 300x250, placement, below article thumbnail, 300 by 250, target _type, mix. Chapter 49 Raymondo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In a forest somewhere in the north of Cheeshing Lake, the Gnoll Rogers led hundreds of carefully selected guards, carrying a large amount of wealth and valuable items, and walked through it carefully. A Gnoll who had followed Rogers for a long time was full of doubts. Seeing that he was getting farther and farther away from the main force, he suppressed his fear and asked, "Leader, why do we have to leave the main force, take the financial report, and go against the original plan to leave from the north?" The one-armed Rogers riding on the back of a Gnoll opened his eyes. His fierce eyes made the Gnoll who asked the question startled, and he began to regret making this decision. "I suspect that the missing Dorego fell into the hands of humans. The original evacuation plan has been exposed. In addition, we are carrying so many human captives on the way back. Do you think those human nobles will let us leave the border safely?" The Gnoll with low IQ was even more confused, but he was very sensible and nodded in agreement. Rogers looked at this fool who pretended to know with disappointment, waved his hand and told him to go to the back and not appear in front of him. He looked up at the sky, calculating the distance silently in his heart. "We can leave here in 2 days." This journey as a cannon fodder made him firmly believe that he would never come again next time. After returning, Rogers decided to use 2/3 of his wealth to bribe the clan leaders to improve his status and strength to avoid being selected as the cannon fodder leader next time. Covering his missing arm, Rogers' eyes became fierce. The revenge of the broken arm will be paid tenfold. On the other side, Waylin dispatched 6 silver knights and 12 knight attendants to leave the Praying Star Lake and head towards the Grey Mist Mountain in the north. Compared with the rapid increase in the strength of the territory in a short period of time, Waylin valued the safe development time of 30 years more. For this reason, he brought all the 7 color life flowers with him in case of emergency. Grey Mist Mountain is more than 100 kilometers away from the Praying Star Lake. If you travel at full speed, it only takes 1 day to arrive. Along the way, there was no obstruction. Except for a few blind goblins, basically no monsters were encountered. "My lord, this is the place." Wei Lin drove his horse forward, looking at the 1,000-meter-high mountain shrouded in fog, and was shocked. "It's getting late, set up camp here, and search the mountain tomorrow morning." Then, the 12 knight attendants began to set up camp, feed horses, and make fire to cook. The other 6 silver knights patrolled the surroundings and drove away wild beasts. There was still 1 day before the arrival of the legendary wizard. Wei Lin sat on a big rock, closed his eyes, followed the light in his heart, and roughly felt the direction and distance of the legendary magician's fall. Northwest, 2 kilometers. Wei Lin opened his eyes, looked into the distance, and said with deep eyes, "My lord, the tent is ready." A knight attendant came to Wei Lin and reported respectfully, "Looking at this young man, he has reached the strength of a mid-level knight attendant. Your name is Cyril, and you are Baird's knight attendant." Wei Lin stood up and said gently. Cyril stood up straight, with respect and joy in his eyes, and said excitedly, "Yes, my lord. Yes, you have a good talent. I hope you will keep up the good work." "My lord, I will." Patting the excited young man, Wei Lin walked slowly towards the tent. Entering the tent, Wei Lin put down the knight's short sword he carried with him, took off the heavy armor, felt the cool air in the air, and sat on the blanket. "It seems that Baird's education is playing a certain role. In theory, the vassal of the vassal is not my vassal, but this set is very disgusting to Wei Lin. He does not want an uncontrollable military group to appear under his command. At this stage, without perfect education, he can only hope for this master-apprentice system. Once he develops to a certain extent, he will learn the family set, with one group of people responsible for training and another group of people responsible for combat, and the only object of loyalty is himself. Half an hour later, a silver knight came to Waylin's tent with a bowl of broth and placed it on a low wooden table. "My lord, there is no danger around." Waylin did not eat first, but looked at the silver knight Raymondo and said calmly, "Raymondo, I remember that you were born as a merchant apprentice." "My lord is right. Thanks to the cultivation of my family and your cultivation, I can get to where I am today." Raymondo responded respectfully with a strange look in his eyes. "Next, I intend to let you regain your family skills. Are you willing?" Raymondo was silent when he heard this, and he was struggling in his heart. Wei Lin was not in a hurry, and looked at him quietly, waiting for him to make a decision. If he was unwilling, it would not be too late for him to train a caravan leader. Cyril was good and quite smart. Raymondo, who was born as a merchant, was the third son of the family. Thanks to his talent and gold coins, he was selected as a knight squire and trained in Windsor Castle. He then served in the 7th Knights of Eagle Territory, recalling his father's earnest teachings: being a businessman has no future. Only becoming a nobleman is the right way and the most noble way. Unknowingly, more than 10 minutes passed. After a fierce struggle, Raymondo finally knelt on the ground and said, "If the master needs it, Raymondo will obey." After getting this unexpected answer, Waylin was stunned for a moment and re-examined the guardian knight in front of him. The family gave them 12 knights. In addition to paying more attention to Baird, Andro, Randolph and Greg, they had some understanding of the other 8, but they were not very close. "Once you are my guardian knight, you will be my guardian knight for life." Waylin said to Raymondo calmly, "If you don't want to in the future, you can report to me at any time, and I will make other arrangements." "Yes, my lord." Then, Waylin and Raymondo talked about his hometown. After Raymondo left, Waylin took the slightly cool broth and tasted it slowly. "The caravan candidates have been determined. Next, we will develop caravans, sell mineral salt, and develop the pillar industries of the territory. However, before that, he needs to do business in the province of Cardro in person. First, he needs to get in touch with other nobles in the province and collect intelligence. Second, he needs to determine the trade route. It is best to establish caravan exchanges to avoid multiple customs duties and road taxes." The next morning, Waylin left a few people to guard the camp and took the others to the northwest to prepare to welcome the guardian god for the next 30 years. At the same time, hundreds of gnolls who came out of the mountains were resting more than 10 kilometers away from Grey Fog Mountain. Chapter 50. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the Grey Mist Mountain, Waylin arrived at the target location. "Everyone disperse, don't get close to this place." For the sake of safety, Waylin looked at the sky and immediately issued an order. Upon hearing this, the others moved away from this place and stayed a few hundred meters away. After an unknown period of time, fluctuations began to appear in front of him. The dazzling chaotic light appeared out of thin air in the open space. Feeling the unprecedented pressure, Waylin led everyone to retreat hundreds of meters again. 10 minutes later, the space was broken, and a woman in a robe was spit out. Her body was tattered, and she fell steadily to the ground. "My lord, this is..." a silver knight asked in astonishment. Others looked at Waylin, and there was also confusion in their eyes. "Just remember that this is the future guardian of our territory." Waylin simply replied without explaining anything more. About 15 minutes later, the space channel gradually disappeared. The next moment, Waylin got up from the ground and walked over slowly. The closer he got to the center, the more the legendary realm he imagined did not appear. He did not feel any pressure all over his body, which made Waylin a little suspicious. Unconsciously, Waylin crossed a distance of several hundred meters and came to the side of the magician. The silver hair, delicate face, and devilish figure made Waylin swallow his saliva. However, when he thought that the woman in front of him was a legendary magician, his restless heart suddenly extinguished. Then, Waylin took out a small wooden box from his arms and took out a 7-color life flower from it. Carefully came to the legendary magician. A light blue shield appeared, and then disappeared without a trace. It is said that these high-level mages will put on a magic shield to detect attacks. If I had any unreasonable thoughts just now. When Weylin thought of the scene of himself turning into a pool of ash, he hurriedly shook his head and hypnotized himself. I am here to save people. Next, the light blue magic shield did not appear again. Weylin put the 7-color life flower to the magician's mouth, and the next moment it turned into a light green liquid and entered the magician's body. I don't know how long it took. Weylin sat aside like a rogue, waiting for the legendary magician to wake up. At this moment, a knight attendant appeared in front of everyone. Weylin turned his head and saw that it was the personnel left behind in the camp. He felt bad. My lord, Lord Raymondo asked me to report that a large number of jackals are coming towards our place, with more than 300 of them. The knight attendant came to Weylin and reported breathlessly. What? That the silver knight on the side stood up suddenly and said in horror. The others gathered around with weapons in hand, looking at their master with worried expressions on their faces. They could easily deal with dozens of gnolls, but more than 300 gnolls would definitely be a big trouble. Calm down, let me think about it. Weylin said calmly, and began to think about countermeasures. The gnolls coming from the interior of the province are definitely the evacuating monster coalition. There may be many silver-level monsters inside, and the top priority is to avoid their sharp edge and try to preserve the living force. Notify Raymondo to abandon other supplies, take the horses and necessary rations, and evacuate in our direction. Yes, my lord. The knight squire did not stay and sent them back as quickly as possible. At the same time, the gnolls, who were only 2 or 3 kilometers away from the Grey Mist Mountain camp, had already discovered Raymondo and his group here. One-armed Rogers rode on the back of the tall gnoll, and his face became gloomy. Look carefully, there is a human camp ahead. Leader, there are many humans ahead, and the flags they are hanging are exactly the flags used by the human outpost. Hearing this, Rogers gave up the idea of taking a detour, and his expression gradually became fierce. Go full speed ahead, I want to collect some interest. Yes. Hundreds of gnolls suddenly accelerated and headed towards the camp. In the camp, Raymondo received an order from Weylin and immediately ordered, abandon this place, take the purple horse, and retreat with me. The 8 knight attendants who were arranging fortifications heard the order, immediately discarded the wood and stones in their hands, took the necessary rations, rode on the purple horse, followed Raymondo, and went to the Grey Mist Mountain. Only 10 minutes later, hundreds of gnolls who came out of the wilderness arrived at the camp. In an instant, the fortifications that had not yet been completed were destroyed by the gnolls, and the tents were torn to pieces. Rogers looked at the empty camp, and his anger made him lose his mind. He shouted to his men, where are those humans? Leader, over there, they ran over there. A gnoll with a keen sense of smell sniffed and quickly gave the answer. Chase, I want to eat them alive. Looking at the broken arm, Rogers once again issued a pursuit order. The other brainless gnolls chose to follow and headed towards the Grey Mist Mountain, thinking with their brains, there are hundreds of people on their side, and only a dozen people on the other side. No matter what, they can't lose. In the Grey Mist Mountain, Weylin saw Raymondo coming and breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that the message would not be delivered in time and would be dragged by the group of gnolls. My lord, the group of gnolls is behind us and will arrive soon. Be prepared for battle, the target of this group of gnolls should be us. Weylin stood up and looked at the large number of phantoms appearing in the distance, and ordered loudly. Just when everyone was actively preparing for the battle, the legendary magician's fingers began to fluctuate, as if he was about to wake up. 10 minutes later, hundreds of gnolls surrounded Weylin and his party. Each gnoll looked at these people fiercely, constantly swinging the weapons in their hands, waiting for the leader's order. Varen drew his knight's sword from his horse and prepared for battle. If you want to survive this situation, you can only kill the opponent's leader first and leave them in chaos before you have a chance to escape. Of course, if the legendary magician wakes up at this time, this situation will be easily solved. Here, the jackals were divided into 2 teams directly opposite. A jackal with a broken arm rode on the back of a tall jackal and slowly walked forward. The moment he saw the other party, Weylin's eyes became solemn. Ha ha ha, this must be my god's blessing on me and giving me the opportunity for revenge. Roger's face became crazy and he roared loudly, "I will tear you into pieces, pickle you with salt, and taste it slowly." Hearing the other party's common language, Varen held the knight's sword tightly and waited for the right moment. There are 7 silver knights on his side, so there may be a chance to kill the opponent forcefully, but these 12 knights and attendants are definitely unable to take care of them all. Window _tabula equals window _tabula dot push mode thumbs feed 01 foot container tabula below article thumbnail 300x250 placement below article thumbnail 300x250 target _type mix